Welcome back to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast, the show that analyzes the newest technologies in Microsoft Cloud and how to manage those technologies to help your business teams be successful. It's episode 16. My name is Scott Ledwan.
And I'm Holly Peterson.
And in this week's episode, we're going to be teaching you to become a prompting expert using Microsoft Copilot. So welcome back to the show, Holly. It's been like a week and a half.
Thank you.
We went like this weird kind of long break of not being together due to everything that kind of happened back in October, November with you and then me doing travel. And now it feels like we're doing these back to back. I've been getting more content out there on the YouTube channel. They actually rolled out a new feature in Teams Premium at the very end of last week. I think it went out to Target members called Decorate Your Background or Background Cleanup. They talked about it at Ignite. So I saw that pop up and I'm like, I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to make a real quick how-to video on this. It's been one of my kind of like target goals for this year is to start doing kind of more like mini Microsoft MVP content where like I'm making videos and talking about new features and products and services. And I just haven't really had enough time to be able to sit down and get to it, but I'm starting to get a little bit of a better feel for it. I've got a little bit of a better recording setup here. So for our listeners and watchers, if you want to check that out, it's over on our YouTube channel. I actually recorded a short on it yesterday as well. The kind of like the purpose of the short is like 30 seconds to talk about what it is and then point people at the video. More people have watched the short than have actually watched the long video, which sure, I mean, I guess that's cool. We're getting some viewership, but I mean, check out that long video. You'll learn how to use it and what you can actually do with it. I do some quick demos on so I work out of my home office here and I've got like a I've got my what is it? The dude sweater back here back to my left. And then I've got a bunch of posters on the wall and a piano and stuff like that. So I actually use the feature and it's as simple as hitting a button and the AI just cleans everything up. It transforms the room. So the sweatshirt or the sweater kind of turns into like a coffee table. And then the posters behind me kind of turn into like different kind of like art pieces. Like, so they look completely different. I think it turned like my piano into a bench and put pillows on it. It's a pretty neat feature. It's one of those gotchas for like, hey, if you're paying for Teams Premium for $7 a month to take advantage of intelligent recap, this is another one of those things that I feel like is also a good option. I did some digging too to find out where that stuff's hiding in the new version of Teams. So you can actually grab those pictures and use them as your actual backdrops if you want. So it takes the person out of the picture. Cool. Yeah, it takes the person out of the picture. So I was actually able to layer my avatar over the top of my own environment with all that AI done on top of it, which was neat.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that feature. Although I think there's going to be sort of the if you're a premium user and sometimes your messy room is the thing that prevents you from turning on your camera. There's a cure for that. The one thing is, as a mom, I think I will also, if I see someone who has premium that has a messy background, I might do the mom, like, clean up your room.
But you can now. You just hit a button.
Yeah. It's really neat.
It was really neat, too, because I put that video out there on LinkedIn, and I actually had some people reach out to me and ask me if they could share it in their own networks, which, by all means, if you see me post something or you follow us on our YouTube page,
for sure,
you are more than welcome to share that content with your friends, family, coworkers, stuff like that. That's the reason why we're putting it out there.
Go for it.
All right, so we're recording this show on December 20th, 2023. So we are 5 days from Christmas. What's your Christmas looking like? Is there anything that you're doing special? Any gifts that you're looking forward to getting?
Well, so I'm doing the old Kevin McAllister week here. My family is back home in Minnesota. I'm here in California. It's just me and the dog. That's also a good sign because it means that I'm able to be left alone. When I was in full broken ankle mode, I had the freedom of a toddler, and now I can, kind of be by myself in the house, which is pretty nice. I'm really looking forward to getting my family home. I would say, I don't know if you're the same way. I tend to buy a lot of things in December and then tell my husband that that's what he got me for Christmas. And it's great because Santa's very, very good to me. But one thing we are looking forward to, I'm going to do this on Saturday. My husband and I collect tiki mugs now that we live in Southern California. There's a newly released tiki mug. We talked about this last time. My husband went and got one in Disney for me. There's one at a really, really old kind of classic fixture tiki bar in Los Angeles, the Tiki Tea. They're releasing a mug and selling it on Saturday, and I'm going to show my husband how much I care for him. I'm going to go get him that mug
Nice.
on Saturday. So, um, yeah, I would say I wish I could tell you there was a huge wish list, but buddy, I've been checking that wish list off since December
Yeah,
1st.
I, I,
So
I I
I'm,
feel like all
I'm
year
good.
long I just buy myself what I want, and then I get to Christmas and people are like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Nothing or gift cards." And honestly, I'm okay
Yep.
with not getting that many gifts. I feel
Yep.
like as you get older, you should be get the giving happens downwards instead of up to you.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Children that don't have their own jobs or bank accounts. It's fun to get gifts for
yep.
kids. Um, I think as adults, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, anything I've wanted, I bought a long time ago. I don't know. It's maybe sort of like that's just where we are as a generation,
Yeah.
but it's Christmas every day if I want it to
Yeah,
be.
I'll go 6 months and not buy anything, and then I'll end up like being like, all right, I need like a new soundbar or a new TV or something like that every few
Yep.
years, and then I'll go buy something.
Yep.
And then my wife will give me grief on it because I spent a lot of money on a TV
Yep.
that we didn't need. But it looks nice and it's good for the game, right?
That's
How
right.
else am I going
That's
to
right.
watch the Buffalo
Speaking
Bills
of,
crush the Dallas Cowboys?
oh yes, it's the Bills are playing on. Is it on Christmas
They are
Eve?
playing on Saturday versus the Chargers, so they're playing the day
Oh,
before
okay.
Christmas Eve.
Who are we? I think we have something. The Vikings are playing the Lions. Um,
Yes, you're
who have a
playing the
really good
Lions
record this
on.
year.
You are playing the Lions on Sunday. It looks like.
Yes, so definitely gonna be sitting down to watch that, moving slow those 2 days, but
Yep.
um, yeah, it's gonna be fun. I get my family back just in time for Christmas Day, so we'll be laying low uh, here, and then kind of I personally really enjoy those very quiet weeks at work between Christmas and New Year, because it's just a great time to get your focus
Yeah,
working
absolutely.
to,
Yeah, we actually
clear out
traditionally as
the
a company
backlog.
we try and tell people not to schedule meetings during like that last
Oh
week of the year,
yes,
so that they
yes.
can spend time with their families and wrap end of year projects up and stuff like that. I mean,
Oh
obviously,
yeah,
like there's going to be meetings that you still need to have, but I think a lot of
yes.
organizations, typically in IT, even go into like change freeze windows in December into
Oh
January
yeah.
so that they can, slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think, you work in professional services, I work in professional services. It's just like it's an opportunity to put your head down and just get through more stuff than you can get through in, you can cram many, many days into 4 days.
Yes,
So, I'm looking forward to that. That's another little time of year I enjoy. I'm fond of
yep,
it.
yep. All right. So before we get going with the rest of the show, I want to talk about topics here. But before we start there, I just want to
Mhm.
remind our audio listeners again, this is going to be a very heavy visual demo
Yep.
episode. So if you can check out the YouTube page, that will really help you kind of follow along. Though we will do our best job to kind of describe what we're going through. So yep, stop by, and if you're there and you have the opportunity, what should our listeners and our watchers
Mhm.
do?
You should like and subscribe.
Yes, very.
If you like what you're hearing, come and follow us. There's all sorts of new conversations happening all the time. And I think 2024 is going to be fast and
Yep.
furious on the Microsoft side. So,
As if
I just know
2023
there's going
was
to be
not
lots to talk
fast and
about.
furious enough with every month a new Copilot thing being announced.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget to share either. That again really helps kind of
Yeah.
spread word on the channel. All right, so let's talk about topics for the show today. So we're going to be going
Mm-hmm.
through kind of like 3 or 4 different topics, but we're going to kind of end the show going through a number of different demos. So the first thing that we want to
Right.
talk about is Microsoft in November at Ignite rebranded Bing Chat
Yep.
Enterprise, which was announced in February of this past year as the
Yes.
introduction to its Copilot stack. They
Yep.
rebranded it from Bing Chat Enterprise to just Copilot. So it's just Copilot now.
Yep.
That can be a little confusing, especially because there is Copilot in Microsoft Edge. You can use it in Chrome now. There is the Copilot
Yep.
button now directly in Edge. There is Copilot for Windows. There is Copilot for consumer versus
Many
enterprise. There's
flavors.
Copilot Chat,
Yep.
Copilot 365. So really kind of setting the stage for what it is just
Mm-hmm.
Copilot, which was Bing Chat Enterprise, but there's also a consumer version of it. Is
Right.
Copilot is your entry step into generative AI if you're using Microsoft products. So
Right.
you go to copilot.microsoft.com and it opens up the page
Mm-hmm.
for you. And that's where you start. And we're going to go and we're actually going to do
Right.
demos on using that, comparing it to Bard, and then we're going to look a little bit more deeper at the commercial version of it, which is that's the
Right.
one that has the commercial data protection built into it. So if you're an organization and
Exactly.
you're allowing your employees to use this, and it's opt out, by the way. So unless you opt it out, it
Yep.
is just turned on. So make sure that you know that if you
Mm-hmm.
don't want your employees using it, that you actually have to go and stop them from using it. Though,
Right.
for all intents and purposes, I wouldn't recommend stopping them. Instead, I would educate them on best practice on how to use it, and that they should not be going to they should
Exactly.
not be going to the free version. So don't have them going to
Right.
OpenAI. Don't have them be going to Bard, or even some of the other ones. I think like Opera and the Brave browser have their own ones as well.
Right.
Instead, point them at that Microsoft Copilot in the organization.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I would say you kind of nailed it. You need to be kind of facing into the wind on this one. I know that for a lot of organizations that I've been working with, and I work in the training and education space. This has probably been the single most, questions that I've gotten on a single tool, and I've kind of taken that tack is AI is here. And even if you try and whack a mole Microsoft's AI, lots of other tools that you probably own in your company software stack, especially cloud based software, um, is going to have its own AI
Mm-hmm.
assistant. Worked with a group recently. Hey, if they tried to turn off Microsoft, they also own HubSpot. They would have to turn off ChatSpot. There's this is everywhere. And I think the things that we're going to go through today is really just to help people understand these tools, how they can be helpful, and really how to get started writing good prompts because the outputs of these tools are really only going to be as good as what you give
Yep,
it.
for sure. So we talked about why they rebranded, and I think that we talked a little bit on the last show too. Is I had heard a rumor that they had even considered doing something like Copilot would just be for consumers, and then there would be a Copilot Pro for enterprise. And boy, am I really glad
Yep.
that they didn't do that, because throwing pro on the end of something seems very cliche at this point. Everybody's doing it, like, and really, there's no difference between the products outside of the commercial data protection.
Right.
In fact, we're going to show you in a
Right.
minute here, and I've got up on the screen is this is the commercial. This is the non-commercial version of the tool, and it has plugins built into it.
Right.
And the commercial version of the tool does not have plugins yet, which is actually really
Mm-hmm.
interesting that it came to consumer first. So we're going to be playing around with that. I actually used it the other day to
Right.
try and book a restaurant reservation for me and my wife for New Year's Eve. And we'll go through and we'll try and recreate that test and see if it's as hit
Okay.
and miss as it was for me 2 days ago when I played with it. Um,
Right.
um, so Holly, what's the big difference between this and 365 Copilot?
So the thing that I want to make sure everyone knows and that it's totally clear, because it's murky, and even after Ignite we got a lot of clarity around what this, what these tools are. But Copilot is just the name of any Microsoft AI service wherever you find
Mm-hmm.
it. The Bing Chat Enterprise tool, now Copilot Chat,
It's hard not to
this is
say it,
available
right?
to, I know, let me tell you, Microsoft naming, it's just the ever, long
The
struggle.
Windows Phone is
Um,
coming back.
but so um, the Copilot chat that you would find in the Edge browser, or at, say the URL again one more time, it's
Copilot.microsoft.com.
copilot.microsoft.com.
I'll put it up on the screen.
So where you're gonna find that, that's available to anyone. That is like, you know, you have to be a browser to ride. You have to have a browser to ride the ride. You need to have a Microsoft 365 account if you want to be in the protected version. But that's really available and that's open. This is really just a chat
Mm-hmm.
assistant. It does do image generation, but it's really like any service that you're seeing out there. If you've heard of ChatGPT, Bard, um, as Scott mentioned, there's a lot of them. The 365 Copilot is what you get with that integration into your Office apps. So if you've watched the super slick demos about how you can tell Copilot to build you a set of PowerPoint slides based off this proposal, that sort of stuff, that's the premium version. That's the paid version. And there's, I would say it's more cost
Mm-hmm.
prohibitive kind of barrier of entry. But don't be, they're all going to have the same name. But if you don't pay any money, you're really going to be accessing Copilot through a
Yep.
browser.
And important to note there too. So the consumer version, which is available to everyone, they do encourage you to have a Microsoft account to actually be able to prompt it. I know that
Yes.
in its early phases, you didn't need one, and you could do so many prompts without it. I
Right.
believe now it actually is asking you to sign in. The commercial version of it, which is what we're kind of looking at here. I'm not signed into the commercial
Yep.
version right now. This is consumer, but that does require a business premium standard or E3 or
Right.
E5, I believe, for the commercial data protection
Yes.
piece of it. But again, you don't necessarily need to use that if you are comfortable using the free version. Not everyone is going to have that higher tier licensing, but again, when you're
Right.
talking about sensitive information within your organization, you probably don't want an analyst in your business unit plugging in, financial
Exactly.
numbers and referencing your company or other companies' names. Microsoft says that they don't use what's fed into it to feed the models. Maybe that's true. Certainly not throwing any shade or slander at Microsoft. What they say, I hope is true. It's just, you have trust but verify is really what I'm trying to say here.
Yes.
Um,
I think AI safety is good. It's a theme in a lot of these conversations, which we can get
yep.
into. But that's probably one of the things that we're going to immediately put um, Copilot, even the free version, head and shoulders above its competitors.
Yep.
I don't know what to kind of call it because it's free, but it does not save your conversations. It keeps track of how many you've
Yep.
had, but it doesn't like keep this running log of what you've asked, what you've input, and what you've
Well, so it
output.
does.
So
It does actually save them, but what Microsoft has said is that it's not feeding its
not
model
feeding
with
them.
it. So if we look
Right.
back, so I actually before we started, as I cleared out my conversation history on this right pane, and
Okay.
because I don't want everyone to see what I've been searching. Not that it's like naughty or anything bad, but I play with the tool and I try and challenge it and make it do better. But you'll see as we do some demos is that will build up, and you will actually be able to go back, and it's very similar to OpenAI. Is you'll be able to go back and see previous searches that you did. So if you needed to go back in and check on something, or maybe you need to go back and edit a prompt so you don't have to do it over again, or
Right.
maybe you were a genius and you made this amazing prompt suggestion. So you were talking about image generation in here, using
Yes.
Dolly 3 and Designer. And there was something that came out over the weekend that someone kind of like cracked the nut on like image generation creation for like Funko Pops. And if you know the exact right keywords to ask in the right way, is it can design you a Funko Pop that looks very similar to you. And I'll put a picture of that
Oh
into
yeah,
the
I want to
show
see that.
here, so you can see what I'm talking about. Holly, I'll try and do one for you and one for me. But yeah, it's
Ooh,
really interesting to see that AI is getting to that point. We were talking pre-show
right.
about how expensive that is, though, just to be able to,
Oh
like, for
yes.
every designer search that's being done, is it's like you're removing water from like a small country. And obviously
Yeah,
they
that's
recycle a lot of that, but yes,
oh
it
yes.
requires, it's very
But
resource
it
intensive.
is, and this is one of the things that I guess I did want to comment really quickly on the cost and the sort of like the barrier to
Yep.
entry for co Copilot. So even if you are, hey, we want to use this, we really want our company to be, using these tools. One, you have to buy a minimum of 300
Yep.
seats right now, right? So it's 300 seats. It's $30 per seat per month.
Yes.
So
And there's an
you'll
annual
pay
commitment.
oh,
And it is only
yep,
available
and
for organizations that currently have E3 or E5 licensing. I want to say that
yep,
at one point I had
E3,
heard
E5.
business premium and standard, but I think that might actually be out of the equation now.
I didn't see that it was going to be inclusive of those kind of smaller company
Mm-hmm.
SKU, but you know, it's like $109,000 a
And that's
year,
before
and that's
taxes.
on
Yeah.
top of your E3 and E5
Yeah.
licensing. So I heard another person kind of say, this is for the big boys, and it is sort of right now where it's at is like, you're really not going to go into that off, the 365 Copilot unless you're purchasing all those seats and you're probably a very, very large
Yep.
company.
So you're looking at, so if you have 300 employees that have this and it costs $108,000 a year, but they also need to have, or I'm sorry, yeah, so $108,000 a year,
Yeah.
but they also need to have E3s. So then you're talking about an additional
Yes.
$36 US per month for 300 employees, which per month
Really
is
expensive.
almost $11,000. And then you take
Yep.
that number and you equate it out to 12, is, yeah, you're talking about a lot of money.
It's a lot. It's a
So
lot. However, once you really get your hands dirty with this, once you understand the promise of it, it's sort of you start to understand like why people are they're going to go
yep.
there.
And Microsoft has released some of those like key performance or work index slides on this recently. So I talked about
Right.
that a couple of months ago on the podcast in November.
Right.
But they've updated those, and they said that on average they're seeing like employees save like, I want to say that they said 10 hours a month, which again, like, yeah, that's great, but 10
Yeah.
hours a month doesn't seem like a lot, right? When you're talking about, 40-hour weeks, 4 or 5 weeks a month.
Right.
So it seems like a very small percentage, but again, a lot. So I sit on the Microsoft kind of like partner calls, and I listen in on the community showcases for this stuff.
Hmm.
And it does seem like you're paying $30 for a beta to be a beta tester right now. And the
Right.
product is getting
It's
better, but
early.
it's taking time. And one of the biggest complaints that I've heard on it too is
It's
that
early.
the companies that seem like they're having the most challenges with it are the ones that were probably the least prepared for it to begin with. So, like, an important part of this conversation, all these
Right.
Copilot conversations, is preparing not only your IT staff, but also your organization that this is coming. So, start training them.
Right.
That's kind of what the point of this podcast is today, about becoming a prompt
At
expert.
100%.
Um, yeah, and
100%.
it's going to get better over time. But the other crucial part too is when you're talking 365 Copilot is security. So I don't know, Hallie, if you saw the news.
Yes.
Um, Microsoft Delve for Web, which you and I both have very strong feelings on, is
Yep.
being retired next year. which was not really a big surprise, I think, to either of us because it's been moving into all of the different areas of the Microsoft 365 products. So it's at
Right.
portal.office.com, which I believe is soon to be cloud.microsoft.com. Um,
Yes, that's
and
another
the
another change to
yeah,
get
the
used to.
more places that it pops up, the less important Delve seems to be. But if you look back in time, when organizations found out what Delve was, is everybody freaked out. They're like, "Whoa, all these files are out here that I didn't know existed, and this can't be right. Like
Right.
we are way oversharing." The same problem that appeared through Delve, if you were paying attention to it, is going to be the exact same problem that you have
Right.
with Copilot if you turn it on and you have
Right.
not actually done some sanitation on your sharing. So that's something again,
So
like to be prepared for before you even think about purchasing it.
right. So I want to just make sure that so anyone who works with Microsoft knows if you've worked in their demo environments, the company Contoso. Well, everything's perfect at
Mm-hmm.
Contoso. All the files are in the right place. All the sites and folders have the correct permissions. All the groups have the correct members.
Yep.
Everything is perfect in Contoso land. Once you turn some of this stuff on an environment where you Delve does a really good job of surfacing where group permissions, file permissions, even just file locations, where someone decided to save a file in SharePoint. Um, a lot of the bad decisions and maybe slightly incorrect permissions or incorrect group memberships, Delve does a really good job of just sort of rising those right to the
Mm-hmm.
top. And I would always tell people, don't be afraid of Delve because Delve is if everything's in the right place, it's
Yeah.
amazing. But it's good to look at what you're seeing through Delve and understanding where you need to make some tweaks and get things fixed. I think Copilot for 365 is going to be the same
Yep.
way. When you are saying like, find me all the files related to this project and build me a proposal based on last year's proposal, I always think this is truly amazing. When you watch those demos, you're like, wow, mind blown. But I think a lot about like the environments that we work in, right? Run by humans. Um, it's sort of like in Contosa land, everything is
Yep.
perfect. And we are going to have to, Copilot, if you're a company that shut off Delve because you were like, I don't know what this is doing and I don't want any part of what this is surfacing for people, remember those permissions, those group memberships, those whatever didn't go away. You just sort of turned off your ability to kind
Yeah,
of
yeah. No,
be
and
confronted
I mean,
by
I've
it.
had customers before tell me that the problem isn't them, the problem is Delve, and I've kind of looked back at them and told them I was like, I'll be honest with you, Bob, that's not true. Delve is just
Yeah,
surfacing your
it's
problems. Like these are things that you
right,
need to be cleaning up. You should be using Delve as a tool to understand where there's
right,
oversharing. You can do kind of
right.
that same thing in SharePoint today as well, or at least the SharePoint Advanced Management piece of it
I think
is
so.
learning where you're oversharing, learning who's in the wrong groups, learning what
Right,
team sites or SharePoint sites that are out there with no activity that you should probably just archive because they're
right,
not serving any purpose.
right.
But and
And
there's going to be
and
a whole new
also
set of
one other
tools to do that kind of stuff too in 2024.
one thing I will just remind people, if you are interested, again, for any big boys that are listening, Copilot doesn't know what's on your H
Yep.
drive. So again, I know for a lot of people that would, viewers of this podcast, listeners of this podcast, people that work here, we know what that journey looks like. If you've just implemented Microsoft 365, if you're 7 years on, 10 years on, um, network storage, dies hard.
Yep.
And um, these tools don't know anything about what's there.
Yeah.
You need to be cloud first, and you're going to have a great time with these tools. If you're not, it's always going to be kind of a half in, half out of that world.
Microsoft has an assessment document as well. It's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet that determines, is my
Yeah,
organization ready for Copilot? And things that it asks are,
that's
and we're talking
great.
about 365 Copilot. This is a long tangent. I'm going to drive the car back onto the
Yeah,
road here in a second. But as part of those questions, they ask how many users are in your organization, how many of them are frontline workers versus information workers. Um,
yep,
are you using on-site file permissions? Are you using Exchange on premise? And there are certain things that they're asking very specifically so that they can tell their
right,
sales team, circle back with these guys in 6 months to a year, but give them recommendations on you need to do these things first before we'll consider
right,
you for
right.
Copilot. Because it's
True.
Copilot is one of those weird things where I feel like anything that you want in Microsoft 365 is you just go into the admin center and you say, yep, I want that license and that license and that license. And you just cherry pick
Oh
them.
yeah.
Copilot is not that way. You cannot just go into the admin portal
Hmm.
and grab it right now. You actually have to go through this kind of this formalized assessment process with a salesperson and actually be
Right.
chosen to be entered into it. And then again, you have to
Yeah.
sign into an annual agreement. You have to be on an enterprise agreement with Microsoft as well, and then you have
Yep.
to be able to pay for it and commit to it. So all right, super
Yep.
super long tangent,
Absolutely.
but that's the big
No.
difference. That's the big difference between what we're talking about today, which is Copilot and kind of the commercial
Yep.
version of Copilot through Edge and Windows 11 or Windows 10 as well, coming very soon
Right.
here,
So
and
so yeah,
365.
swinging back. Now we're going to take we're baby steps square one with, Microsoft generative
Yep,
AI,
yep. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk
You
about
don't have to
today,
say
like that you've
anything.
seen demos on for like Word or PowerPoint, you can do a lot of that stuff by using just this tool. You just can't natively do it with
Exactly.
inside the app yet. Yep.
Exactly.
All right. So I think that my next kind of lead in here was going to be how do I use it? Why does it matter? What do I use it for, and how do I use it? And I think that we've already covered the why does it matter.
Right.
So I think that we can kind of start jumping right into the how do I use it, and we'll talk through some different demo cases here. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let me switch screens here, and then we will get started up on our demo. Okay, so let's actually take a look at the consumer version of Copilot. So again, the easiest way to get to this is by going to copilot.microsoft.com, and you'll be greeted with this page. Again, you do have to sign into your account, and you can also access the tool through the Edge kind of web view up here, and it'll just pop open. Very interesting, though, Holly. What do you see over there on the side? It says Bing Chat Enterprise. So they haven't quite gotten to rebranding this area yet. I did not expect that when I pulled this open, but again, you can see that in a lot of cases, the cart is either in front of the horse or the cart is rolling right along next to the horse and not actually attached. But yeah, so we're not going to be
You
talking too
know,
much about the browser plugin
right.
today. We're going to be talking about the web page. So
Yeah. And I think that's fair because that's, again, easiest, peasiest way to get started is to just start at this page.
yep. So we're at the page. You'll be presented with a couple of different options here. And we talked about Copilot Labs on the show a couple weeks back. And this is kind of be a similar experience to Copilot Labs, where it kind of gives you suggestions on different prompts that you can write. So it'll help you code, it'll help you write, it'll help you write a funny joke. It'll give you some ideas about shopping, stuff like that. These are just it's to kind of get like the juices flowing in your head for how do you start writing a
Right.
prompt. One of the other areas to take into account too is when you start a topic, you'll click the new topic button and it's going to ask you, do you want to be creative? Which is going to be kind of like the reins are off and the AI can hallucinate a little bit. It's still going to try and
Jen,
ground its data in web searches,
yeah,
but it's not going to be as accurate as more imbalanced, which is the
right.
default setting. This is where I would
Right.
suggest most people start with their searches, with the exception of image searches. Image searches and creation actually has to happen
Hmm.
in creative. And then more
Right.
precise is this is going to be a very straightforward experience where it's going to be the most grounded. And if you are not specific enough on your prompting, is just not going to be able to give you back what you're looking for. So
Exactly. Exactly.
we'll start with a couple examples here. So I think that we'll start on more. So Holly, what should we test? What's a good starting
So
point?
a good way that as many of you know, I work in training, and a good way that I start people on AI prompting is to try a kind of a you know what, I don't want to say call it a bad prompt, but try just kind of like a mediocre prompt,
Mm-hmm.
and then try something that's more akin to what we're looking for. So a good thing that I like to think about is recipes, because recipes can be, you can get a really simple recipe. It almost will always be able to give you something back, and then ways that you can be specific. So let's just ask it for a recipe for gingerbread cookies.
All right. So once you type in your prompt, it'll start responding. Um, I don't think that we're going to be asking it any naughty questions today, but if Copilot does detect that you're trying to ask it like, hey, how do I build explosives in my garage? It will probably
Right.
just, you may see it start to respond, but it will just very quickly,
It'll catch
yeah,
itself.
catch itself
It'll
and
catch
stop.
itself.
So
Um,
as we're kind of going along here, it's filling in. These are many recipes for gingerbread cookies.
yep.
It gave us gingerbread cookies 101 from Food Network. It gave us another recipe for the best ever chewy
Right.
gingerbread cookies from Betty Crocker.
Right.
It's giving us gingerbread cookie recipes from BBC Good Food. And then it's even
Right.
actually suggesting us some videos here. So the best
Right.
gingerbread cookie recipe ever from Chef Gail Skoll. And then another one from The Gingerbread Man by Irene Magazine.
Well, and this is sort of what I like to highlight as a behavior and a way of working with these tools that many of us, like who grew up in the internet age, have to unlearn.
Yep.
And it's search engine talk. The way that I would search for something on the web, I probably talk like a caveman, right? I don't use full sentences. I'm not very specific. And if I just type in gingerbread cookie recipe,
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically gonna get search results. And that's kind of what we're getting here, is sort of like, okay, here's a bunch. But what we need to do is start getting very specific. And I want to think, if anyone wants to channel, like, you're a high powered executive and you want your assistant to do something very, very specific for you, whatever it is, we need to actually do a little extra work to tell it to give us a good result. And so in this case, I would say, I want, I want an easy gingerbread cookie, or kind of write me an easy gingerbread cookie recipe that's gluten free. And again, you can say, don't require cookie cutters, or you can get very, very specific. So if we're talking to our assistant and we say, write me a gingerbread cookie recipe that's easy to make and is gluten free
Mm-hmm.
and don't require rolling and cookie cutters, that's like, sometimes it feels like, well, that's a pretty big ask.
Yep.
But remember, this is our AI assistant.
Well, the most important thing with this too is like it's just like Google, like you said. Like if you put in a bad search to Google, you're not going to get back what you want. But what you want to do with Copilot is you want to be as specific as you can. The more specific you can be,
Absolutely.
and this is like so. GPT-4 Turbo, which will be coming out, I believe, sometime next year, is going to give you even more of an edge on that by being able to
Yes.
understand even more complex prompts. So, Holly, while you were
Right.
talking, I entered your request. So I put in, what's the easiest gingerbread
Right.
cookie recipe that is gluten free and doesn't require cookie cutters? And it actually came back with even more detail. So before, we were kind of getting like this grounding and search based experience. It was giving me links. Instead, now it kind of gave me step by step instructions, and it gave me a list of all the ingredients I need in order to accomplish the task. So again, a
Yeah.
stronger prompt is going to yield better results.
So we talk a lot about that. So that is probably the one number one thing. If I was to sort of teach classes on prompting, which I do, uh, I would say take the way that you work with search engines, Google, whatever, and just save it for Google. Here we are talking to an assistant, and you have to be very specific. And you can be imaginative. You can ask for the moon, but you have to be very, very specific of what you expect back. So, for example, if I, um, we added on, we started tacking on things like, and uh, write me the instructions for someone who's never baked before in their life, that we can further sort of, refine and dig in and get results. So that's kind of the one thing that I will tell people is do a bad prompt, then take that same prompt and try and make it better and compare your
And
results.
I'm
It's one of my favorite hands-on
and I'm glad that you
exercises.
said that too, because so this is a conversational based chat program as well. So
Yes.
I'm going to actually write me the instructions as if I've never baked before, and I'm going to add that on. And I believe that you can
Right.
do up to 30 prompts. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take what it already told us, and now it's going to rewrite
Right.
it to make it even easier for someone who's never done this
Right.
before.
Right. So these are the types of things that um, I kind of will tell people, and again, don't want to get too far ahead of wherever we are on that demo,
Yep.
but refining and having that conversation. Um, it's sometimes AI is going to give you back kind of what you want, but remember, you can tell it no, try again. You can be the Miranda Priestley Devil Wears Prada
Yep.
mean lady. And you can be like again, but at an eighth grade reading level, whatever. And you can keep making it make the output better.
Yep. And so yeah, not getting too far ahead of the demo. The demo is actually just finishing right now. It gave us 7 instructions and it was very detailed, probably about 1,000 words here on step by step how to do everything. So again, and then it'll actually give you kind of like these prompt suggestions that like maybe sometimes you see on your
Right.
phone is like you'll start typing and then it'll auto suggest words for you to kind of help speed you up, kind of like the
Right.
old T9 20 years ago. So if you didn't know what the difference between baking soda and baking powder is, you could ask it. Or how do I know if my cookies are overcooked or undercooked? That's a good question, especially if
Right.
you've never baked before. So
Absolutely.
you just click on the prompt and then it automatically drops it in and it starts up kind of like that third conversational
Right.
prompt. And here it's telling you, hey, if the undercooked cookies will have a pale and doughy center. Overcooked cookies, I'm assuming here it's going to tell me is
Right.
that it's going to tell me that, hey, they'll start to get a little bit too brown around the edges. But
Right.
again, it
Right.
grounds all of that in search data in previous questions that have been asked, very similar to this, to help
Right.
build out a better experience as you're talking to it. Now, the one thing that I will say is that it doesn't always give you 100% accurate results. And I believe that that usually shows up somewhere on the page that basically tells you, like, oh, AI wrote this. It might not be 100%
Yep.
accurate. So, again, you have to trust but verify. It's just like,
Right.
what's the saying that's been going around for 30 years now is you can't trust everything that's on the internet. Same thing here
Yep.
is it may look
Right.
correct, but it's not always correct. So, you have to kind of use your head with it sometimes.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd say
Yep.
really quickly, one thing as people are sort of watching the demo, if you've never used the Copilot Chat, Bing Chat Enterprise, one thing you're going to note is that it does try to tell you where it got its
Absolutely.
answers.
Yep.
It cites those, sources. And that can be a really good bridge for people that are like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how it's doing what it does. There's just a little bit more transparency in the way that this generative AI tool works. And I really appreciate that. One other thing that, and we can get into kind of the do's and don'ts of prompting, but the thing that I love about um, this particular tool is I can tell it where not to get my answers,
Yes.
or I can tell it to only use certain sites or extensions, things. I really appreciate that because some of the other ones are a little bit, tell the black box what you want, and it's not going to.
Yeah. Where did that
You don't
information
really
come from?
know
And it
where
just,
it got
yeah.
any of it.
Um, so you don't have to worry about it pulling information from InfoWars, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those like transparency things because again, uh just like you said, don't trust everything on the
Yep.
internet. Well, maybe there's certain sites that if you're a researcher and you're like, please do not find me facts from, whatever, some, I would say in higher education and things like that, there's tons of caution around citing like Wikipedia, even though we all use Wikipedia to get
Yep.
facts and things like that. But it's sort of it's one of those cautionary things where you can kind of
And
say,
I'm
please don't use those sites to get me what I'm
and I'm
asking
sure you
for.
can remember the days of your teachers telling you you can't use Wikipedia for quotations. Like this is going to be the same thing, and we've seen it happen in schools already. It's been happening this year.
Yeah.
Is that certain schools are actually going out of their way to block these generative AI tools because they don't want students using
Yes.
them. Um,
Yes. There's a lot of if people are sort of curious about kind of how this just kind of like hit the scene one day, um, you know h- uh, high school, higher education, um, this is really where it got blown wide
yep.
open. And if people are curious, I highly recommend that you go out to there are some university websites out there that have actually put out guidelines for their students about the use of generative AI. Any companies out there that are looking to start and publishing their own guidelines and sort of usage, it's going to be like a good place to start looking and seeing what other people are doing. I would say go through, read those things through your own eyes, not through having generative AI tell you
Yep.
that. But I would say go out and do a little bit of the legwork yourself because it's really interesting to see. Because as you mentioned, Scott, some people have completely, just shut it off and said no way, and others have tried to kind of say, how do we coexist with this technology?
Holly, I finished up our conversation with the bot here, asking it if it was healthy for me to eat 200 cookies in one day. The bot has told me no, eating 200 cookies in one day is not healthy for you. Eating too many cookies can have negative effects on your health, such as I could gain weight. I could end up craving even more cookies. I could be eating 201
Thanks,
cookies a day the next
Copilot.
day. Um, I'll be hungry not long after that, meaning more cookies. And I will increase the
That's right.
likelihood of developing chronic health issues. So I will not be eating 201 cookies in a day or 200 cookies. But I just thought that that was
Even if
fun.
they're
That
gluten
again,
free.
within that
Even if
same
they're gluten
conversational
free.
context, is it understood what I was talking about and it used that to ground
Right.
that data and continue to talk to me about that topic. Um,
Yeah, it really is good. And I think even seeing this, even though this is a little bit of like a cream puff example of the use of these generative AI tools,
yep.
it's just a really good example of how, hey, if you want to go try this stuff out, go have an innocuous conversation with your AI assistant about a recipe or I don't know, coming up with a list of ideas, whatever it is, just to get the feel for using those tools.
So I'm actually going to create a new prompt here based on the last kind of jokey response of I've been eating 200 cookies a day for a month. Build me a weight loss plan, and we're going to see what it does from there. Because this is one of the
Right.
earliest things that people started using this for, is to build themselves like weight loss plans or build themselves itineraries for like travel and stuff like that. Oh
Yes.
no. It told me, wow, that's a lot of cookies to start with an exclamation point and a shocked emoji. So at least it's got a sense of humor. But it is very happy that I'm trying to improve my health and lose weight. And it pointed me at the Mayo Clinic for diet and weight loss tips, how to
Yep.
lose weight fast in 3 simple steps, the 7 best weight loss meal plans for women, which I guess wouldn't
Right.
apply to me. But I mean, similar genetic makeup. I could probably figure some stuff out, do some Pilates.
Right.
Um, but
Well, this actually, I will say, I have ingrained, I use these tools a lot in my regular day-to-day life.
yep,
And um, something I actually, just your whole thing, like you said, itinerary. Just last night, this is true. I use this tool to write me a 3-day schedule for getting my house cleaned up,
mm-hmm,
um, uh, before my family gets home from Minnesota. Not that I'm like especially messy, but because I'm recovering from a broken ankle, I can't just do the, 1-day blitz anymore. I have to sort of break up my tasks. Um, and I was just thinking, like, that would be a really good example of how, if you're not specific, uh, if I say, write me a cleaning plan for my house. Well, this tool doesn't know anything about my
yep.
house. Doesn't know how many rooms I have. It doesn't know how many bathrooms I have. It doesn't. So if you do it wrong, if you're not really specific, um, you're maybe not going to be as
Yeah, it's going to
impressed.
give you something very, very generic until you start getting more specific with it.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a couple creative demos here, and I actually had a good example from
Oh
just
yeah.
last weekend. I don't have the picture of it because I cleared my chat history, but a good use of the tool, and I won't show this one. Well, I'll show real quick on the screen where the button is so there is also a add an image button in here, which is fairly new. And you can paste an image or a link or take a photo if you're doing it off of your smartphone. And there is a smartphone app for this as well. I think it's called the Bing app. Um,
Yep.
but I had a plumber come out to my house last week because I had to I couldn't get the cartridge out of an old shower that was leaking and I couldn't get it out. So I'm like, well, I'm not smart enough to do this. So I asked Copilot for help. And
Yep.
Copilot, unfortunately, with that, it couldn't point me in the right direction because it didn't know enough specifically
Right.
and I couldn't prompt it right. So I had a plumber come out. He replaced the pipes, but he had to cut a hole in my drywall. I've never patched drywall before, so I was like, "Oh, well, how do I do this?" I took a picture of the hole and I put it in the Copilot, and I said, "I had a plumber come out to my house and replace some pipes and plumbing for my shower stall. I need to patch this drywall back up. Here's a picture. Tell me what to do." And it literally told me that I needed to go to the store and I needed to buy like a spackle compound and I needed to buy mesh tape
Yeah.
and I needed to put 2x2s behind it and insert screws into it so then I could put the piece of drywall that was cut out back up over the top of it. And then it told me how to
Yes.
layer it, how to spackle it, how to sand it, and paint. And these are things that I think we've joked on the show before about, like, these are the books our fathers had in their basement, like the entire Craftsman encyclopedia of how to fix things. And like this is
Yes.
what the internet had turned into previously with like YouTube videos. But now again, through the power of
Right.
generative AI, is you can just ask a question and you get a better response that maybe you wouldn't be
Right.
able to get out of a search engine. So yeah,
Absolutely.
super, super cool. Um, so one other thing that I wanted to demo here is I wanted to show off the plugins in the consumer version before we kind of switch foots
Yes.
over to kind of doing a comparison between Copilot and Bard. So
Yep.
there's only a few plugins in here available right now. There will probably be thousands of these down the line. You can choose up to 3 plugins. And I'll pop the screen over back so you can kind of see where that is. So
Mhm.
it's in the right corner. And again, only available in the consumer version right now. So you can
Right.
do Instacart, Kayak if you wanted to do kind of like flights and hotel bookings.
Yep.
Open Table is one that I used the other day. I'm actually going to turn that off for right now. and then shop.com, and then just general search, which is, what it's using
Right.
behind the scene right now. So if I turn on, let's see, kayak.com as a plugin, and
Right.
then I say, I need to book hotel and air travel from Buffalo, New York to Disney World in
Woohoo.
February. And I actually am going to Disney World in February, so I'm not making this up, but I have already booked all this stuff. um, so I'm going to say I need to book hotel and air travel from Buffalo, New York to Disney World in February for the first week of the month. Can you help me find the most affordable rates? So I've got that plugin turned on. So what it should be doing now is it should be referencing the grounded search data, and also should be referencing kayak.com to
Right.
find me the best rates on hotel and air travel.
Right.
And we will give it a sec here to kind of run through its paces, and we will actually see, does it work? Um, it is.
Yeah, one of the things while this while the kind of prompt goes through, one thing to note, um, because I find that, again, we'll talk through this in the comparison. We'll probably see it a little bit. While you get your sources, you get your work, I do find that Bing can sometimes run just a little bit slower.
Yep.
But I find that it's um, that transparency piece of it is kind of worth the wait, if
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's generating the response right now, and it's found me a number of different departure times, airport arrival times. It's in the process of filling in what the full price for a lot of this will be. Um,
Right.
it's just transformed the table into an Excel document that I'll be able to download when it finishes creating it. So yeah, again, just a
Yeah.
lot of really neat stuff that you can do here. It's even giving me booking
Hmm.
URLs built in, so that after I'm done reviewing these,
Right.
I'll just be able to click on links and go directly to the pages to set this stuff up. So
Hmm.
we'll let it work its magic here behind the scene. There's one last demo that I wanted to do. We talked about the Funko Pop thing. Let's try and do one
Yes.
on the fly here. So I'm going to switch to a new topic. And I'm going to do creative, and I'm going to try and build a Funko Pop of you, Holly, and we'll see how it works.
Aw, awesome. I hope it looks totally accurate.
So, Holly, while I am typing this out so people don't have to watch me type,
Yep.
describe how you want your Funko Pop to look.
Well, I, you know, I just want to, caution everyone on the marketability of a Funko Pop of a middle-aged woman.
Yes.
But I think just wearing a pink and yellow sweatshirt would be pretty funny. And definitely, I have glasses, which I think always is a little hard on the Funko Pops. Um, and I would say, I guess my hair is like about like a little longer than shoulder length, but you know,
All right. So we're saying create me a Funko Pop of a middle aged woman with shoulder length blonde hair wearing a pink and yellow sweatshirt. Do you want to be holding an object?
oh gosh. How about holding a crutch? Because that's kind of how I am most days. Ooh, put a walking boot on her left leg. That would be, let's true to form right now.
Okay. So I just typed in here, create me a Funko Pop, create me I'm gonna say, create me an image of a Funko Pop, because I don't think that it's
Yes.
actually going to be able to 3D print me a Funko Pop here. Um,
I'm taking the three. I want the three, and then tell it to write you a 3D printing.
we'll follow up with that if it gets it right. So the article that I saw over the weekend, I think it was on Windows Central, had a very very specific set of parameters kicked into it,
Yeah.
and we are much lighter on those parameters than they were.
Oh, yes.
But it is in the process of attempting to build this right now. For those of you watching the demo, you can kind of see like hourglass with the paintbrush next to it
Yep.
that we're waiting on. And it's going to create us 4 different images, and we'll take a look at those live and see how close it actually gets.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I
It did a
it's
really
pretty
good
good.
job. um, I will, Holly, while we're waiting here for these to load, I'm
Yeah.
actually going to take a screenshot so that I can get a live reaction of your face when you look at
Okay,
these
I
in the
gotta see
Teams
it.
chat.
Let me throw that over here.
So, yeah, it did a very good job. You can click on any of these photos,
That's pretty
and it
good.
will actually
Actually,
zoom in and
it's
let you
yeah.
download the photos. So if I open one of these in a window, you will see in the bottom left corner that there is a little designer brush to show that they're kind of stamping it.
I
But yeah,
love
you
it.
can download these. You can scroll through the image. This is actually new too. Is you used to have to go into every image and click. Now you can actually click through kind of a slideshow.
I
Um, yeah,
I'm blown away.
really, really neat.
Very accurate. Although I don't know if it's, I mean, these are super great. Honestly, so good. But now that I look at them, I'm like, is this a time in my life I want to commemorate?
Well,
I don't
and
know.
so
But
one of the other things that you
it
can do with
it
this
nailed
too is
it.
so we can actually change, we can add new data to it. So um, add rounded glasses.
Yep. So
And
add
now it will
rounded
go back and it will
glasses.
look at that original prompt and it will try and add rounded glasses onto the figure. So you would think, so, and I've
That's
run across
so
this myself in
great.
testing this before, is that it will actually add the rounded glasses on your face. Sometimes they'll just show up in the background. Sometimes they'll be like on the floor in the frame. So it'll be interesting to
You have
see
to be
what this looks like
specific,
here.
right? You have to be
Yep.
specific. Yeah, I would say the thing that I love about the image, one of the first things I did, this was like early days of Chat GPT. My niece was staying with us and she loves Shel Silverstein.
Mm-hmm.
So I had her write her a Shel Silverstein poem about her and our dog Wolfie, and try to make one of the Shel Silverstein style illustrations to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, early Dolly, not, it's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
nightmare
It's
fuel.
it's gotten a lot better.
But
Um, it's
it's
in.
so
So
much
it's interesting.
better.
So it did. So I shared the photo with you. It did put the
I
glasses
love
on.
it.
Um,
I love
I'm
it. These are
very
pretty
interested.
good.
So it changed one of them. It looks like it changed the crutch into a cane for some reason. And then in the bottom right
Yes.
one is it gave you 2 crutches and a prosthetic leg, but then it added one of the
And
original
the
images next
Infinity
to you, and
Gauntlet.
it gave you an infinity gauntlet for some reason.
I mean, I I, I love it. Although I'm gonna tell you, the one in the lower left, that is, it's pretty close. I love it. But yeah, the one where I have like a bionic leg, 2 crutches, and then I'm with my friend with the Infinity Gauntlet. This is like just a really good live example of where it's like, I don't know where you dreamed that up.
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
how. But one of the things that I love about image generation and side by side with text generation is somehow when text comes at us and it looks good, seems right, and we're like, that checks out ish, looks good, copy
Yep.
paste. To help you understand the kind of hallucinogenic, properties of these tools is like the image guidelines is to kind of, see they they can build just something out of nothing. And if you're not fact checking, if you're not kind of owning that work 100% and saying this is something I built and I'm going to be responsible for it, the text is always a good reminder, or the image is a good reminder, like check your text because these things can really dream up
Yep.
stuff.
All right. So I wanted to take a look at the Copilot versus Bard. I know we had a couple other things that we wanted to talk about as
Yes.
well. We're about an hour into the podcast right now, so I think I'm going to give us both a quick break, and then we will come back and we
Yep.
will jump in and take a look at some of those other pieces next. All right, and we're back. So Holly, we're a little over an hour into the podcast now. Just in the
Yeah.
interest of time, I think we're gonna dip on the commercial side of things. So really, the
Right.
biggest difference, and I'll put kind of a screenshot up here on the screen as well,
Yep.
between Copilot for consumer versus Copilot commercial, or is Copilot commercial again has enterprise grade security behind it and commercial data
Right.
protection. So again, you're going to have that under your business licensing with Microsoft or your enterprise licensing with
Yep.
Microsoft. And again, it's basically just saying that what goes into Copilot does not go out to the internet and it's encrypted and all that jazz so that you and your
Right.
employees are protected. What we're going to do is I do want to dip in and just do a couple quick comparisons because Google just recently came out with the Gemini announcement that's now powering Bard. So
Yep.
Google said that in 28 of 30 tests, Bard is just as good, if not better, than ChatGPT, and then they immediately got caught lying in their demo videos. So I think that this is a good opportunity to try and put the two up
Let's
against each
try
other and
them.
just see how they do. Certainly no shade on Google.
Right.
They're doing their own thing, and Microsoft is doing its own thing. But just I wanted to give
Yep.
some examples to the audience of how the two tools interact. So I'm going to switch back to our demo screen here, and I'm going to grab a quick copy from my clipboard, and we're going to see how this kind of changes this up based on a prompt. So I'm actually going to take the intro to our podcast. I'm going to change to creative
Yeah.
over here, and I'm going to say, take the following podcast introduction and make it sound more creative. Paste it in, copy it, and I'm going to send it through Copilot and send it through Bard, and we'll see what the differences are here. So the one thing I can say right off the bat is it looks like Bard got done with it way quicker than Copilot did. So Copilot basically rewrote it. It did some improving on it, optimize on it, and then it gave me the ability to just copy it off the clipboard. So it changed the podcast intro to, "You're listening to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast, a show that brings you the latest and greatest in Microsoft Cloud. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, we'll help you navigate the ever-changing world of cloud technologies and show you how to leverage them for your business success." So very similar to kind of what we read off at the beginning of the show. Bard, on the other hand, so Microsoft only gave us one option. Bard, on the other hand, gave us four. So it gave us option one is an intriguing question. Option two is playing a metaphor. Option three is more action oriented. And option four is adding a personal story. And it also gave us a bonus tip. The bonus tip is add a sound effect or a short music clip to set the tone and energy for your listeners. Um, so I feel like I got quite a bit more out of the Bard options. Let's see how they hold up. So, intriguing question. Feeling cloud confused? Navigating the ever evolving Microsoft maze got you spinning? Well, buckle up, Cloud Crusaders. All right, I'm already done because I would not start a podcast like that. So the first one, intriguing question, kind of came off as a little cheesy. Let's try
Right.
playing the metaphor. Um, Think of your business as a sleek spaceship blasting through the digital cosmos. But even the coolest rockets need savvy engineers to fuel the
Right.
engines and chart the course. That's where
See,
the Virteva's Let's Talk podcast comes in. We're on a mission. We're your mission control, guiding you through the Microsoft Cloud Galaxy, optimizing your tech and ensuring your teams land on success every time. So, I mean, I guess I did prompt it and said be more creative, but I think that will
right.
be a little overboard for our listeners. Um,
Well, one of the things that I would say, so two things about the demo. So
mm-hmm.
one, this is just one of those things. Everyone, before you paste in company data into any public facing tool, make sure it's sanitized
Yep.
in any way. That's not no dings on Scott. He and I we get it. But I'm just saying, if you're like, rewrite this financial report, you know, uh, like, please don't paste in anything into these Gen AI tools that maybe isn't things that you wouldn't find on your
Yep.
um, company's public website. So that's like tip number one. Tip number two is we and this again, we're just doing a quick demo, but one of the things that you can do when you're wanting it to rewrite something, you want that creativity, give it some inspiration. So if you have favorite podcasters, comedians, things like that, again, there are some ethical gray areas here, but you can say, write it in the voice of this person, or make it sound similar to these types of people. They're the way that they write, the way that they speak. And that's actually one of those things that I think brings up some of those, you know, those things is the ethical dilemmas that we're all going to face as more and more of us have IP and writing and speaking styles. So, but it is one of those things that if you like the way someone writes, if you like the way someone speaks, you could say rewrite this like it was this person, and you
Mm-hmm.
kind of can get some really cool stuff out of it.
So I took your example there and I rewrote it to sound like someone else was saying it. And so Google Bard is actually done at this point. And again, we're a fairly open podcast. Like we love Microsoft stuff, but we're not
Yep.
afraid to say when it's a little bit slower or
Yep.
behind. I feel like from a creative standpoint is what I'm seeing on the screen is, so I had it rewrite it in the voice of Donald Trump, America's favorite president, depending on where you sit on the aisle. And the I
You
will
can only
say
read it
from
if you read it in his voice.
I will say from reading the Microsoft or the Copilot version of it is, I don't really, as I read it, so it says, you're listening to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast, the show that tells you everything you need to know about Microsoft Cloud. That's how it starts. It really doesn't get into kind of any Trumpisms until it kind of gets to the end, where it says, I'm going to show you how to make America great again with Microsoft Cloud. It's going to be tremendous, tremendous success. You're going to love it. That's
That's
it.
the
Like
that's the
it,
$5 impersonator version.
Yes. Now, on the other hand, so the Google version actually comes with a disclaimer at the very top that says, I must preface this by saying that you're impersonating political figures that can be controversial,
Ooh.
and I encourage you to
Yep.
consider the potential implications before using this. And then it actually writes a very long intro in the form of Donald Trump. And I don't know if I can do a good impression of Donald Trump, but I will do my best here.
All right, folks, it's Donald J. Trump, live and unfiltered on Virteva's Let's Talk podcast. No fake news media, no low energy socialists, just straight talk about the biggest, the best, the most beautiful technologies in the Microsoft cloud. The rest of these tech shows, they're losers. They're sleepy, they're boring. They're like watching paint dry. Me, I'm gonna give it to you straight. Like a beautiful steak well done, no gristle.
And there's a lot more here, but I
That
mean,
is
that it
frightening.
nailed the tone in a frightening way there. um, and again, some of this, and we're trying to just do like real world demos here
Right.
for you so you kind of understand what it looks like. Um, I wonder how much Microsoft's is tuned down specifically to avoid this kind of thing, because it
Right.
can be controversial, where Google is just saying that, hey, heads up, here's what's happening. And then it just
Right.
kind of examines different speeches that are out there, different YouTube videos, and it pulls all that
Right.
together and tells you to buckle up,
I
strap
think
in, and get ready for the most electrifying tech talk you've
right.
ever heard. This ain't your mama's podcast, folks. This is Donald J. Trump's Let's Talk, and it's going to be huge.
Well, this is one of those things, though, is I think Microsoft is really conscientious about things like deep fakes and
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And we've all seen the things that have gone viral over the years, like the Pope and the drip, white puffy
Yes,
coat,
yes,
that everyone
yes.
was like, whoa, the Pope's a fashion icon. And it was like, no, AI made that image. Um, and if you have enough of yourself out in the world, um, it's sort of like, could you write something that would make someone believe that that was this person who said it?
Hmm.
And that's kind of one of those things that I think we're in a really unique time point with these tools. We're just starting to see more kind of regulation or kind of guardrails go up in the EU,
Yep.
so you're the ground on that stuff. But it's one of those things where when we talk about using this at work, I think that there's sort of a really good natured, good hearted way to use these tools to
Yeah.
make your day easier, to make,
Help
I know
help help
Satya
me
Nadella talked
rewrite
about,
this paragraph to make it sound more
yeah, the
professional and
drudgery of work.
add quotations or add some additional
Exactly.
flavor around
Exactly.
configuration. Help me write a PowerShell
Right.
script on this. And again, I think with code specifically, you do have to be very careful because I have done testing with internal folks on the PS and the managed services teams at Virteva
Yep.
on writing code. And it may look right, but when you actually go to execute it, a lot of times it's not. Uh,
Right. Right.
and you'll see that between Bard, you'll see that between OpenAI, you'll see that between Copilot.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just, again, we talked about it at the top of the show. It's trust but verify. Do not like AI is not going to replace you for a lot of reasons. But at the same
Right.
point, if you're just copying and pasting, it's going to be pretty obvious that
Yeah.
you're just using AI to do it, and you're going to
Yeah.
get caught. So use it
I
as a
think,
way to clear writer's block, but not as a way to just
yeah.
do your stuff for you.
Yeah, don't sort of the commandments of AI, are sort of being written, but uh, don't pretend to be other people.
Yep.
Uh, don't just copy and paste what you're doing into that final product. Think of any output as a draft that could be wildly wrong in some ways. It's going to look really convincing, just like my crutch and walking boot Funko Pop. That
Yep.
looks really convincing. If I put that up on a website and said, look at this new Funko Pop, it's would be kind of weird, but it seems believable. But for all the people that I've worked with that kind of say, hey, is AI going to take a bunch of people's jobs, things like that? I would say no, there's still just there's still a lot of human intervention
Yep.
that's needed here. And for those of us who work a lot with these tools, you start to recognize that voice and that way of writing and the way that the outputs are commonly structured. So you got to give it you got to put your touch on it. You got to put the finishing touches on it,
Yep.
because the more and more people are using these tools, the more it won't take an eagle eye to spot
Yeah, and I think that one of the other interesting
those
conversations
outputs.
on it too is that when the AI starts feeding the AI, like we saw this with Twitter's or X's
Yes.
Grok AI, is
Yep.
that's going to create some problems. And I think that they're already
Yes.
starting to see that. I mean, so ByteDance recently just got caught using OpenAI. They were using OpenAI's models to basically build its own model, and they got caught on
Yep.
that. And I mean, it's not like you said; it's not hard to see what's the AI writing it versus the person. Um, Kind of as we go to kind of close out here for the show for the week and for the year, is I think the biggest takeaway is we wanted to show a lot of demos and talk about what all the tools do and show what they do. But I think that the most important part for any organization, whether you're using Copilot or another system, is preparing for it. So from Microsoft's standpoint,
Absolutely.
they have a website, adoption.microsoft.com, for all of their products. They have a Copilot page on there, which I have on the screen right now, and that has all the
Hmm.
information that you need on it to learn about how to prepare, how it works, joining the Copilot community, learning kind of how to use it from a couple of different
Right.
points of view, whether you're a leader, an IT professional, a developer. And there are
Right.
tons and tons and tons of design docs up there that we've been reading probably for the last 6 months as they've been making more and more of them
Yes.
available. But as you get your organization available, is this stuff is here for you so that you can not only become a prompt expert,
Right.
but also understand how it's going to impact your users, how it's going to impact your community, your events, town halls that you run. Your employees are going to start to have more and more questions on it, especially if you're leaving it on
Yep.
and open. So use this website, use the feedback that you get from
Right.
this show and the guidance that we give you to kind of get ready to take that next step. Holly, anything else to
Yeah.
add?
I would say, one, as always, reach out to us if you do have questions on this. We've been, um, in some way, shape, or form in 2023, been having conversations with our customers on these tools. I've already been leading classes on it, which feels so Star Trekky,
Yep.
to be saying, I had no idea. If you would have told me 4 years ago, you're going to be leading classes on the safe use of AI in business, I would have been like, what? So reach out to us because, we're out there trying to help people understand these tools, get aligned with them, and figure out how they can work in their organizations, or kind of, essentially to have your eyes open on them.
Yep. Yeah, if you have more questions or you're interested in training, you can reach out to us at Let's Talk at Virteva.com, or you can visit our website at www.virteva.com. If you are interested in learning even more, we have our newsletter. I talk about that on the show every week that recaps a handful of topics across all Microsoft 365 news and announcements. I, again, talked about at the top of the show, also starting to put together some more quick tip videos for using different products. So keep an eye on our YouTube page for that. And Holly, it's put on some like New Year's Eve music or something like that. Like, this is the last podcast of the year. It's hard to believe that we're at 16. But yeah, I'm going to try and get back on a schedule, try and do one or two of these again a month now that the news cycles have kind of slowed down a little bit. More fun stuff to come in 2024. So stay tuned for the next episode of the Let's Talk podcast. And again, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and happy holidays and happy New Year's. Take it easy, y'all. Bye.